I'm really excited to go on this cruise because I think it'll be much better than just sitting in a classroom all day. It's hands-on, and I'll get a lot more experience out of it.
I hope to be part of the group of people that help push this research forward.
What I hope to get out of this project is to learn more about marine animals as well as learning about the ocean itself.
To get a better understanding of how life in the ocean works.
What I'm looking to get out of this trip is to learn more about the patterns of all these whales.
An understanding of how marine animals interact with one another and how they affect our lives.
I'm looking forward to broadening my horizons as far as what I'm studying.
And not everybody gets an opportunity to go out on a research vessel. It's important to share these experiences with the broader public, especially from a student perspective.
If I can inspire a flicker of interest in something that I'm already interested in, I've done the basic job of passing on a torch to a younger generation.
Not everyone gets a chance to be here at sea on a research cruise, but through the Inner Space Center, now we can bring you with us. Welcome aboard. Welcome to Endeavor Live. My name is Holly Morin, and I'm a marine biologist with the Inner Space Center, and I'll be your host today as we learn about the at-sea research being conducted by a group of oceanographers and 8 URI Honors students on board this vessel, the Endeavor. We're actually going to chat with one of those students, Chile, in just a little bit. Right now we are actually in transit. We were about 20 miles off of Martha's Vineyard, 40 miles give or take south of Block Island, and we're actually moving because the aerial survey teams that work for the National Oceanographic Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, they are out today because the winds have quieted, and they let us know that they actually had seen some right whales a little bit more to the south and west of where we are located. So we're trying to get to that general area so we can conduct some work when hopefully see some whales as well. The students have been very busy. We've had some tight seas or more steady winds. Today was nice quiet seas, so great for marine mammal viewing, but the winds had kicked up previously, and we did have some rough weather. The boat was rocking a little bit, but the students have been really great about continuing to do work in oceanography. It doesn't matter really what the weather is, as long as it's safe to be operating, the work will continue to be done. So the students have been out working with our scientists on board, deploying a variety of instruments. The one thing that they've deployed several times is something called a bongo net, so 2 very fine mesh nets that they put in the water column to sample very small critters of different sizes, but things that you want to look at under a microscope. They've also deployed something called a video plankton recorder, which I know Erin has actually worked with quite a bit, and that takes images, 60 images in 1 second of what's in the water column, so that if they don't put the nets in, they can actually see what they might be looking at or what might be there. They've put echo sounders in the water as well, which uses underwater sound to investigate layers in the water column. So all these different instruments, and we'll learn about it. We'll hear from Erin and learn about a few more of those that she's been working with and the data that's been collected. I want to encourage everybody, if you have questions today, we have Genesis, who's actually here live with us, and your questions will be relayed to her, and then she'll be telling me your questions so we can answer them online. We'll try to answer as many during our broadcast today as possible. This is supposed to be a really interactive broadcast, and that's something at the Inner Space Center that that's the crux of what we do. I'm sure you guys have used FaceTime or Skype before to communicate with friends and family. We use something called telepresence that allows us to connect to ships out at sea that are doing oceanographic exploration and research. And the really cool thing about the Inner Space Center is that we can actually take multiple feeds of live data, live video and audio data from multiple ships and stream them out all at once through the internet. So that's something unique that we can do in-house at the Inner Space Center. I think what we're going to kick off with first is that we have a short video to introduce you guys to the students that are here on board with us on the vessel, and get a little bit more info about the work they were excited to be doing and what they were looking forward to on this cruise.
Personally, I think it's really important to communicate all of our findings so everyone has the same access to the same information and knowledge that we do.
Because as a student studying to become a scientist, I want to know what it takes to be a scientist out at sea.
I'm so excited to be participating in this cruise, actually, because I'm really curious about the whales and how their environment works.
I joined this class by accident, but I'm really happy I'm sticking with it because I've been exposed to so many different research methods and opportunities that I normally wouldn't have gotten.
Being from the Cape, I've heard about right whales my whole life, and I'm interested in learning more.
Because I'm really interested in the ocean, mainly because I'm from an island, I'm from Dominican Republic.
There's so many people out there who don't know what they want to do, and if I can inspire a flicker of interest in something that I'm already interested in, I think I've done the basic job of passing on a torch to a younger generation.
I think it's important to communicate science to the general public because we don't always understand how it affects our lives every single day.
To get people inspired and motivated into learning what's out there.
Because I want to learn about how the changing oceanographic landscape is affecting the whale's pattern and behavior.
To have the opportunity to learn about the preservation of endangered whales.
I was born in Israel and I moved here when I was 6 years old. And both my parents have a biology background, so that's why I became really interested in sciences.
As someone studying civil engineering, I'm looking forward to broadening my horizons as far as what I'm studying, what I'm researching. Instead of just concrete, now I get to study whales and see how statistics changes with that.
I'm a very outgoing person. I strive to be the best at anything I can try or be, you know?
There's a real value in communicating science to the public because not many people get the opportunity like we do. So being able to broadcast it to a huge audience is something that we're able to give to you.
What motivated me to join this class was that I had to fulfill my honors requirement. But what kept me in the class was the prospect of this week-long cruise out on the ocean. And I love boats, and that really got me excited for it.
Hi everybody again. So joining us now we have Erin Chile, who is a senior marine biology major at the University of Rhode Island, one of our honor students here on board. Erin, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and what got you interested in this class? Coming out on a research vessel and an opportunity like this isn't something that students get a chance to sign up for very often.
Yeah, so Holly, I have been interested in the ocean since I was about 4.5 years old when I first saw the movie Free Willy. Yep, so actually, after that movie, I went to Block Island with my dad, and I actually brought home a killer whale that I still have with me today. He's actually on my bunk right now.
Excellent.
So I was really interested in this cruise because I study marine biology, and it's a really great opportunity to gain some experience in the field.
Awesome. And has everything thus far kind of gone as you thought it would?
Well, the seas were a little rough the past few days, so it's been a little difficult to do some work. I was feeling a little sick earlier, but the seas have calmed down, feeling better, ready to get back to work.
Excellent. So why don't you let us know about some of the instruments that you've been working with. Even though the seas have been rough, like I said, the students have been very busy putting a whole bunch of different oceanographic instruments out into the water to sample different things. And I know you've been involved in a lot of the actual deployment, but also the processing of some of the data, so that'd be great to share that.
Yeah, so what I've been working on is the VPR, the video plankton recorder. The video plankton recorder is about 3 feet, it's a 3-foot arm-length glider, and
bright yellow. It's
bright yellow
triangle, right? It's a bright yellow triangle, yep. I think. Yeah.
It goes up and down in the water column and collects pictures of plankton at different depths and at different distances through the water.
That's called tow-yoing. So if you guys think of when you use a yo-yo, that's exactly what they're doing with this instrument, is that they bring it up and down and up and down.
So what I've been doing with one of the scientists here, Betsy, she's a NOAA scientist who works with WHOI, we've been building a classifier so we can identify the different types of the plankton that live in the water column with this mathematical model called MATLAB. So what we want to do with that is we want to figure out the biodiversity at different sites that we tow the VPR.
Mm-hmm. And why is that important to look at the diversity of organisms that you're seeing with this plankton recorder?
Right, so the diversity is important because it can indicate different productivity levels. So where there's high productivity, there's more likely to be like fish and whales, and we might be able to predict where the whales might go.
So this data almost becomes an indicator of sorts, right, to be able to figure out what's going on with the biology. And again, it's one of the pieces to the puzzle that the scientists are trying to put together as they figure out where whales and other animals are occurring in these waters and why. So I want to remind everybody, if you have your questions, I can actually see Genesis is writing things down, which is awesome. If you have your questions today, what you're going to do is put them in that little chat box that should be underneath the video viewer that you're watching this broadcast through. And we're going to answer as many questions as we can today live during the broadcast. But if you have additional questions, you can use the hashtag EndeavorLive and put those up on our social media outlets, so Facebook or Twitter. And then as long as you use that hashtag, we'll be able to find them, and then we can go back and respond to them so we can get you an answer later on if need be. Erin, as a follow-up question, so you you said that you've been interested in marine science since you were young. How do you think that this cruise then is going to impact you and your career moving forward? Is it something you see yourself continuing to do, or do you want to take a different angle on marine science?
Well, this is a really good question. Well, I want to work for NOAA, so there's a good chance that I might be doing this sort of work in the future.
Working alongside a NOAA scientist in your senior year might be a little helpful.
Exactly.
Opening that door to get to NOAA later on.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Well, I find whales really interesting. I think I actually want to take more of a coral, I want to look at corals more. I'm interested in their physiology and how they respond to thermal stress.
Mm-hmm. And why, what got you interested in corals? What, as opposed to the what do we call it, the charismatic megafauna is what whales are. So corals are also equally important, but what got you interested and excited? Was there another class experience you had?
There was. So my freshman year at URI, the University of Rhode Island, I got the opportunity to go to Bonaire with Dr. Graham Forrester, and I did a coral conservation class there. And we did a bunch of dives, and I just fell in love with diving and with corals, and I realized how important they are. They're a foundational species, so that means that they are the base. They're kind of like the plankton of tropical, because they provide the base for other organisms to live there in those ecosystems.
And where are you, where would you put yourself in your career right now on your path? What stage are you at?
I'm still learning.
I think we're always all learning. I'm always learning too.
So I would consider myself to be a student and slowly gain to that early career path.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so I think I've seen Genesis writing down a bunch of questions, which is great. Keep them coming. Genesis, if you want to throw your first question at us, we are ready.
Yeah, so this question comes from Steven. He's asking, what is the most challenging thing about being on the Endeavor?
What a great question, Stephen. Thank you. So he is asking, what is the most challenging part about being out on the Endeavor? Erin, what do you think?
Honestly, just moving around. When the seas were really rough, it was difficult to function because all of a sudden I just feel really sick. So I'd have to go lie down, take a break. Other than that, it's been really great.
I think even moving, you have to time your movements when you're walking, when the seas are a little bit more rocky.
Not banging around in the aisles.
And I think even when we were at meals, carrying your dishes to bring them over to where you put your dishes at the end, you have to time it and then go and then come back. Great question. Genesis, next one.
Erin, I actually have a question for you. And this one comes from Blackstone Prep. So why do you have to put your shoes on before putting on your suit?
Before putting on my suit?
Yeah, why do you have to put your shoes on first before putting on your suit? I wonder if they watched the video of you maybe putting on safety gear?
Oh, I don't know. What I usually put on the boots after I put on my safety gear, because there are zippers at the bottom of the Mustang suits, is what we call the big orange suits that we wear. So, maybe
I wonder if it was when we were doing the survival suits and you guys had to take your shoes off.
The survival suits have booties on them, so your shoes don't really fit inside them.
So they actually had them take them off, but if they had to put them on quickly, you just throw them on no matter what, and that's it. So, yep, but that was why. And they did a whole host of safety training very early on when the ship was first underway on Tuesday. So they understood the safety protocols, what to do in an emergency. That was putting on those survival suits, which was highly entertaining to watch all the students do that. And then where the life rafts were and where the life preservers are and what to do is a very important protocol to work through. So next question.
So this question comes from grade 6 on the Lawn Avenue Elementary. So what do you mean by the changing oceanographic landscape?
Okay, so this is from Lawn Avenue, and they were asking about what the meaning is of the changing oceanographic landscape. You want to tackle this one?
Sure, I'll try. So the oceans are changing a little bit, partly due to climate change. So what's happening is as the oceans are warming, some of the plankton are not moving where they usually go. So that means that the fish and the other things that rely on the plankton, like whales and basking sharks, have to follow the plankton where they go in order to survive so they can get enough food.
Right, and if you're looking at things, you can look at it either on a long-term scale, so that's where climate change will come into effect, where you can see how things have shifted over decades, hundreds of years. But even on a seasonal scale, things will change. So where are animals going in the winter and the spring? And this is a relatively cold spring for us right now in New England. So how are there shifts there? And they're seeing the whales pop up in different areas than they have in the past, and they're trying to understand why. Great question. Genesis, I saw you writing, so I think we have another one coming at us.
Yeah, there are a lot of questions coming.
Perfect.
So this one's coming from Forest Park Elementary School. So where do you sleep on the ship?
That's a great question, Forest Park. So Erin, where do you sleep on the ship?
I sleep downstairs. I have a bunk bed that I share with Genesis, who is asking us the questions right now. And I have the top bunk.
I have the bottom bunk, thankfully, in my room. So my room is, I think, I share with another student, Gwen, and we are essentially, I think, directly below the spot where I'm standing now. And so there's 2 bunk beds. They actually give you a board that you can slide into the side of your bed so that when the seas get a little rough, you don't fall out. And then otherwise, it's a pretty typical single room. There's a sink in our room. You've got a closet. You've got drawers to stash your stuff. We have actually a separate toilet area in our room. Do you guys have a toilet as well?
We have a toilet that's outside of our room.
Okay, so it's pretty good though. It's pretty cozy. You have a little curtain that you can shut tight on your bed to keep the light out if need be, so you're a little more private if you're sleeping or just want to be alone. But yeah, otherwise, I don't know. It's cozy. We've been all sleeping well, I think.
It's really comfortable. Yeah.
So, yeah. Awesome question. Next one.
So this question is coming from Curtis Corner Elementary School. So have you seen any microplastic on your sample yet?
Great question, Curtis Corner. So they were looking or asking about microplastics, and I'm assuming in those bongo net toes, if we've seen any microplastics come through.
Well, I was actually going through a filtered sample that we collected yesterday, and I think I might have seen a piece of microplastic, but I'm not really sure if it was because of the quality of the filtered water, and it was from the net, or if it was actually from the water.
It's one of those things where with the lab samples that the samples are taking from the bongo nets, what I actually learned this morning was that they're splitting the samples, and so Dr. Wishner, who's from the Graduate School of Oceanography, she actually has what she calls a split box, and it's this plastic box with 2 segments to it, so she can actually take her sample, pour it in, and it splits it so that one half will have an opening that she pours into a container that the students in she can look at here, and Betsy brought in from NOAA as well, but then the other half gets preserved to be looked at later, and that's really where they're going to quantify what is in the sample. They can count the copepods or other plankton, really identify them down to species, and if there are maybe any microplastics, that would be a good place for them to make note as well. I think it's kind of hard with what we're seeing here because it's such a limited sample.
Right.
These splooshes, I love that word, that they keep taking. It's a splash of the sample that they put under the scope.
So we have a big jar about that big that we collect the samples in, and then we only take about 1 milliliter from each of us. So
it's a very small subsample that they're working with. But a great question. Microplastics, of course, is a very big deal right now, and what's happening in the oceans, but something we haven't seen yet. Genesis, do you have another question for us?
Yeah, this next question is coming from Hamilton Elementary School. So what other types of whales are you looking for besides right whales?
So from Hamilton, so hi Hamilton Elementary School, great question. And so they're looking or wondering about the other whale species that we might be looking for. So right whales and what else, Erin?
We're also looking for humpbacks, minkies, possibly sperm whales, fin whales.
Don't forget the smaller dolphin species.
Smaller dolphins, like common dolphins.
Atlantic white-sided dolphins. Yep. So there's 2 groups of whales you want to remember. There are baleen whales, our filter feeders that have the long hairs hanging from their mouths that are the same material as our hair and fingernails. It's called keratin. And then we have our toothed whales that have teeth. And they're actually the ones that are going to be biting fish and swallowing them whole. So when you think of a baleen whale, right whales, humpbacks, minkies, sei whales, and fin whales as well. And then your toothed whales, it'd be really interesting if we saw a sperm whale. Killer whales kick around in the North Atlantic as well. But we'd be looking for those common or white-sided dolphins. And they're much smaller, so a little harder to see. We maybe might see, excuse me, a dorsal fin that's off their back. And the right whales, they don't even have a dorsal fin. Right. So what you're looking for is their spout or blow, which is actually a V shape at the surface. Awesome question. Genesis, this is going to be our last question that we can take today.
The last question for today Sure. This one's also coming from Hamilton Elementary School, and they're asking, what is the most important thing that you've actually learned on the Endeavor?
Hamilton, another great question. So I'm going to let Erin field this one on her own. What is the most important thing that you've learned thus far while out at sea on the Endeavor?
I think the most important thing that I've learned so far is how to keep myself safe. Safety is #1 job, and it's everyone's responsibility.
That's an excellent point, Erin, because if you're not doing your work safely, then you're not going to really be able to conduct your work at all, and you want to get as much data and take advantage of the time and the seas that you have when you can. So awesome. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. Thank you, Genesis, for fielding our questions. We've got Bradley behind the camera, another student of ours, so thank you to that. And thank you, Erin, for taking time to share your experiences. Please remember to follow along with us on our social media outlets, so Facebook and Twitter. You can use that hashtag EndeavorLive to post additional questions if you have them. Also, you can follow along on Instagram. Our students have been taking over the Interspace Center's Twitter feed, the Instagram feed, and posting their pictures and their experiences when and if they can, so that's been a great outlet for us as well. And then lastly, don't forget about the Interspace Center's website, where you can see live feeds from other ships. NOAA Okeanos, Okeanos Explorer will be kicking off their season, their ocean exploration season next week, so those live feeds will be available soon. Otherwise, thank you again so much for taking time to join us today. We hope you have a great rest of your day and a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye.